What's up, you fluffy bastards? My name is Liquid Blitz, and today we're going to quickly compare the Ghost perk to the Rocket Launcher. We're going to go through the pros and cons of each, and we're going to make a final conclusion as to which we should actually use. Now, as per my usual style, all the info is already on screen, just in case you don't want to listen to me or watch the full video. Usually in these videos, the gameplay in the background is directly related to what I'm talking about. But to be honest, with a Ghost versus Rocket Launcher breakdown, I don't really need any specific footage. So for this video, the background is just highlights from games that I played today. Let's start with Ghost, and let's start with the pros. The biggest pro is that you simply don't have to waste time worrying about UAVs and taking them down. You can literally spend all your focus and energy on killing people and going for the objectives. So I guess you could say the main pro for Ghost really is simplicity. It lets you just play without worrying about being visible on radar. It also works everywhere, so whether you're inside or outside, it works while you're controlling score streaks, which is a big deal, so if you're controlling an RCXD or Mantis, or just calling in a Hellstorm missile or Lightning Strike. And on top of that, it also works while you're planting and defusing bombs, so Ghost has an extra level of usefulness on Search and Destroy. So it's all good so far, but now let's look at the cons of Ghost. The main negative is that you have to constantly keep running as long as the UAV is up. I've actually done a separate Ghost breakdown video already. There's a link in the description to that. In that, I actually test the different kinds of movements, so sprinting, walking, crouching, vaulting and mantling, etc. So go check that out if you want to know how well Ghost really works. I'll summarize that video very quickly by saying pretty much you have to keep sprinting at all times to remain invisible to the UAV. There are a couple of minor movement exceptions like walking and crouching with Skulker with anything except an LMG or a sniper, but they are very intermittent and they don't always keep you hidden. You're gonna have to trust me that sprinting is the only 100% guaranteed way of staying invisible to radar. Place your faith in me! You can jump and slide while sprinting as long as you maintain the sprint speed immediately afterwards. Anyway, moving on. The next con. If you want another perk 3, for example, Dead Silence, I mean everybody loves Dead Silence, you need to spend an extra class point on the wildcard perk 3 Greed, in addition to the points spent on, for example, Dead Silence, so you can start spending points pretty damn quick when you use Ghost. Next, Ghost only helps with enemy UAVs. It doesn't help whatsoever with any other kind of score streak or equipment, which actually leads me nicely to the last con. Ghost doesn't give you any protection whatsoever from offensive score streaks. So if you've chosen Ghost over the Rocket Launcher, and the enemy calls in like a sniper's nest or a chopper, you need to haul your ass inside. So that's Ghost in a nutshell, so now let's move on to the Rocket Launcher, starting with the pros. The main pro here is that you can destroy essentially any score streak or equipment with it. It's not just exclusive to UAVs like Ghost is. You also obviously get a bunch of points and XP and medals etc. for actually destroying those score streaks. And for all that destructive potential, destructive capability, it only costs 1 class point, which is really cheap. Unless, of course, you're using a secondary as your main weapon, like a shotgun or a pistol. On top of that, it can kill players, which is always handy in a pinch, but to be honest, it's more for the lols, because it's always fun exploding people. Anyway, the last pro. The last pro actually kind of falls under the first pro, but it deserves its own mention. With the Rocket Launcher, you can take out specialist equipment much easier. I'm thinking mostly about Torx, Barricade, and Razor Wire. The Barricade requires 2 rockets to destroy, and the Wire only needs 1. Taking those down is just free. It's free points. You clear the way for you and your team, and it lets you laugh in the face of whoever put them down. And let's keep it real, whatever pro lets you laugh in the face of your enemies is a sexy pro. Anyway, onto the cons. Firstly, if you choose Rocket Launcher and not Ghost, you need to start paying serious attention to enemy UAV callouts by the game announcer voice. And on top of that, you need to literally take down every single UAV in order to be as effective as Ghost. And when you're up against a really good team, sometimes it can literally be an endless stream of UAVs. That being said, a counterpoint to that is the more UAVs, the more delicious points for you. Anyway, on to the next con. And this is a bit of an obvious one. you can only use the rocket launcher outside or where you can see the sky. Now, depending entirely on the map and the game mode, simply walking outside might not be as simple as just, you know, walk out the front door. Situationally speaking, you can often find yourself trapped inside for a large part of the duration of a UAV. And finally, when you do get outside and look up to take the UAV down, we move on to the last con. You are completely vulnerable while you're looking up in the sky. Lord knows I've died many, many, many times to people pushing me while I'm trying to take a goddamn UAV down. So anyway, those are all the pros and cons I can think of for both Ghost and the rocket launcher. I mean, no doubt I've probably missed something obvious because I always do. But looking at these lists leads me to a pretty solid conclusion. Well, I mean, let's start with the basics. First of all, you should always equip either Ghost or a rocket launcher, in my opinion. Nothing will end your kill streak worse than being visible to the enemy radar. An exception to equipping either Ghost or a rocket launcher is if you play with friends a lot and one of your friends is the group-designated UAV destroyer. Then you're completely free to not equip either Ghost or a rocket launcher and spend your class points on something else instead. But aside from that, my conclusion is that the rocket launcher should be your default choice. It carries such a destructive capability against all score streaks and equipment, and you get it all for 1 class point. It's just way too valuable and cheap to not equip. As for Ghost, it is useful of course, but only really when you're hauling ass, so Ghost might be the better choice when you're using fast-moving, like really offensive, pushy loadouts like with SMGs and shotguns, and maybe assault rifles too, because you're going to be running most of the time anyway. So there's your final answer. Use Ghost for your fast-moving, offensive, pushy loadouts, but use the rocket launcher on everything else. Or just, you know, both, lol. I mean, if you're dead set on using Ghost, then spending 1 class point on a rocket launcher as well is hardly breaking the bank. Anyway, I hope you found this useful or interesting. Like this video if you liked it, like this video if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to see more similar content, and I live stream regularly, but only over on Twitch, not on YouTube. There's a link in the description to my Twitch channel. Liquid Blitz, out.